All right, so this question gets asked a lot here, and it's on X team. Who are the most important characters to build on that team? So in this video, we're going to be taking a look at the top teams in Marvel Strike Force, and we're going to be discussing who you should prioritize building the highest on those particular teams. Now, I want to be very clear about this. Most teams in Marvel Strike Force these days, you're going to need to build each individual character at least up until a certain point. But the point is this: who should you build higher than that certain point to get the most value on that team, and then also even outside of that team as well? So let's actually dive right into it. The very first team I'm going to be talking about here is going to be the Bifrost team. Now, this is your Mystic Raid team here, and this team is probably going to be the first team that's going to get replaced. I don't know exactly how soon, but still, they're a meta team right now based on the incursion raids and what you need for your Mystic section here. Now, the most important characters, in my personal opinion, would be Val, and then it would also be Beta Ray Bill, but Val definitely by a mile. She is the biggest damage dealing character on the team. She's also a lot of your sustain, also gives damage boost to the rest of the team. With the expose, you're getting the ability energy. Once you're getting successful attacks out there, she's applying buffs to your teams like the flex, evade, death proof. You also have the option of being able to use Val in various game modes here. Now, primarily that's an Alliance War and on some nuanced teams there in Cosmic Crucible. That's pretty much basically about it. And of course, like if you're looking at like Dark Dimension and things like that, but on this team here, without Val, this team cannot do anything. Like, they will not survive. They will not be able to get through the nodes. You need her to be able to apply ability blocks. Like, she definitely has to be a main character that you build on this team. Next, if you ask me, like I said, it would be a Beta Ray build here. You want him to he's going to taunt, right? So if he's going to be taunting, you want him to be able to take on enough damage. And also, if he takes on too much damage, I think it gets below what, 50% health, I believe, or 30% health, then he clears a taunt off of himself. So you want him big enough to be able to tank a lot of the hits that he's going to be taking on. So you definitely do want to build him. He also is usable a little bit outside of raids as well, with Val mostly like in CC or also in Alliance War, but you definitely want to be able to have him built up so that he can take on those hits and keep those hits away from the rest of your team, especially some of your other squishy characters like Team Loki and Loki himself. You want to be able to keep some of those things going, but he does do pretty good damage with his ultimate, flipping some positive effects to bleeds too. So I would say Beta Ray Bill and Val will be the two most important characters here that you're probably going to want to build up higher. As you can see, I kind of have them all kind of evened out right now because we're doing the difficulty 3 and incursion rate, so it kind of gets a little dicey if you don't have all those characters built just based on the damage that you're getting. But at lower levels, you can get away with some lower investments into some of these other characters here. Now, let's talk a little bit here about the next team, which is going to be the Pegasus team. This team primarily is largely just hard-bodied and hard-carried by Kestrel. She has great offensive stats. The team is essentially built around her with the defense down mechanics. There's so many characters now in the game in general that apply defense down or flip, positive effects of defense down. So Kestrel becomes a very viable option on a lot of different sort of variety of teams, whether it's in CC on defense, mostly CC on offense. You also have Alliance War. There's a variety of areas where you're going to be able to use Kestrel. So building her up pretty high is going to be very important. But really, the next character on this team, the head would be Rescue, because without Rescue, the rest of the characters on this team have zero survivability whatsoever. You need her there for the heals. You need her there to clear debuffs. You need her there to apply buffs to your team. There's no possible way here to be able to get through those nodes without having a big rescue or a decent sized rescue to be able to keep and top up the rest of these guys here, because she's going to take on some damage too at times. Although Iron Man Infinity War will taunt, but still you definitely need rescue there because of her heals and her ability to even apply immunity, speed up, offense up, giving barrier, reviving characters with her ult. You need her definitely built up. If I were forced to pick a third character on this team, it's probably Iron Man Infinity War, because his ultimate does do a lot of damage with does doubles damage, right? If Kestrel is an active ally on the team, so it goes from 300% piercing to your 600% piercing instead. So you're gonna be able to find some viability use with Kestrel and Iron Man Infinity War, I use them a lot against in whatever is kind of in room 2, Tangled, Web, Kestrel, Nova, and then Iron Man Infinity War. I typically tend to use them together in some sort of a comp there. So good option as well, I think, for this character to be used. But I would probably prioritize those first 2 first, Kestrel, then get Rescue going, and then probably work my way down here to Iron Man Infinity War, then maybe Ironheart, then Darkhawk, if you ask me. All right, so let's move to the next team here. We're going to talk about Extreme X-Men. Now, this one is probably relatively obvious, right? But for the Extreme X-Men team, it's going to be Gambit, it's going to be Nightcrawler, and it's going to be Forge. Now, in general, this is a top tier. This raid team is a top tier team in every single game mode except for Arena. But the 3 mainstays are the ones that I just talked about here that are going to be mostly used outside of raids. So in raids, this team is amazing. Outside of raids, they're pretty good, but the 3 mainstays, people typically tend to drop Sunspot and Cyclops in Alliance War. They'll drop them for Rogue and then throw in America Chavez there. In Cosmic Crucible, there's Rogue and Black Knight at times. So there's people dropping, Cyclops and Sunspot quite often, but the 3 mainstays here are usually Forge and Gambit. Gambit just does a lot of damage. He's amazing. I mean, he's a damage dealer, out of turn damage as well. He just provides overall just a lot of damage for the team. Nightcrawler, this thing just has an amazing kit overall. I mean, I love the speed up on the passive here to the Extreme team, but also himself, giving evade to himself and all X-Men allies. He's clearing positive effects, all positive effects with his ultimate. I love the stun on this special ability here. And then on the basic, he applies an ability block and also bonus attacks, 3 times. He's also arena viable as well. A lot of players are using him in arena, whether on defense, although he's kind of fairly easy to counter on defense in arena. But on offense, I've used him quite a bit. He's on one of my arena offense teams, and I've been able to find a lot of success using him alongside Big Time Spider-Man with Super Skrull, with Apocalypse, and Black Knight. So good character there. And Forge is just the character that you want to target if you're facing an Extreme X-Men team. He's the #1 nemesis that you want to take out here, because once he applies the buffs with his ultimate ability, it's a wrap. It's a wrap. You're not able to really kind of beat that team at that point in time. So, Forge does an amazing job. He also applies, just 5% heals on every single turn to his team, to the X-Men team too. So, good. I would say if you're looking for priority investments, it would be Gambit, Nightcrawler, and Forge, and I would go with first here. Then for your next we're gonna get away from some raid teams in a second, but I want to get the raid teams out of the way first here. So for Hive Mind now, you're kind of gonna need to build all of these characters at an even level. I just really feel like, because you need, the way that the mechanic works for this team is that you need to be able to get the enemy teams and characters down into the red in order for them to be able to get the speed up from Carnage. So I just feel like you kind of have to build all the characters anyways, right? But there are a couple that stand out. I would say Void Knight is definitely the biggest one that stands out because he is viable in Arena. He's viable in multiple other game modes as well. Alliance War, Cosmic Crucible. He's still going to find some plug and play ability. You could definitely also make a case here for Venom, because I think he's the best candidate to be able to gain taunt from Red Goblin. And I would like, I like him being able to take on that damage because he's tanky. Now, to be fair, I want to talk about this here, that at an even star level here, that Void Knight, I do believe, eclipses Venom in terms of his health pool. So just keep that in mind as you build up your Void Knight gear, that in these raids, that Void Knight is going to be the one that gains taunt. I believe that's what I saw there in the stats. Fact check me if you want to. I'm cool with it. All right. And then, yeah, you might ask me the question, what about Red Goblin? I think Red Goblin is largely kit based. He does do a good amount of damage, though. I will say that. The bigger your Red Goblin, yes, your raids will definitely be easier. But I'm thinking about, kind of new, fresh characters here. I feel like it might be a little challenging to get some stars on them, but I'll you know what? To be fair, I think Red Goblin probably stands up there. Maybe it's Void Knight, then Red Goblin, and then being able to keep Carnage, Gwenom, Venom alive here, but build them up enough so that they can do enough damage so that you can start getting that turn meter going. So that's the reason why I said in the beginning, you kind of want to build all of them at an adequate level there. And then if we start adding some other teams that aren't raid teams onto this list, let's talk about Superior 6, right? So Superior 6, I love this team. I think they are a very well-crafted team, very versatile team across the board too. I think I saw a video with Mobile using, what was it, Craven, a Vulture, who was Sinister 6, not specifically a part of Superior 6, but can still be used with the team here. And then Green Goblin Classic, they were doing some damage there in the arena format. But if I'm looking at viability in terms of like not viability, but in terms of who you want to build up primarily here, it would be, of course, the legendary character, Green Goblin Classic. That's almost like a no-brainer, right? But then the second character would be Doc Ock because of his charges, the heals, the minion, that does the turn meter if you're using Vulture. His ult is also kind of nice because you can flip positive effects into negative effects and you can prolong additional negative effects. But you want Doc Ock here because he is the sustain for this team. Craven is quite squishy. Lizard can get mowed down because he's in a gain taunt. Some of these other characters, they really do, Vulture, they really do need the sustain that Doc Ock can bring. I find that if you lose Doc Ock off this team, the matchup goes to poop, right? So two characters that you really definitely need here to build up at a higher level to be able to kind of sustain your team. And then of course you can kind of slowly build up the other characters, but you're going to need to get them to a certain point in order for them to be effective anyways. All right, and then the next team gear, let's quickly talk about Masters of Evil, because I think this is one of the most interesting ones to me, because as a team, they work very well, but it's really about, that team is really as successful as your Kang, right? Just an amazing character. I don't really need to say that much about him. He's amazing. But the next character that I think is good on this team to build would be Titania. Now, what I'm thinking is going to start happening here is that a lot of players are not, once they start getting their Cabal team going, their full Cabal team with Leader, Iron Patriot, and then Namor, Cool Khan. All right, once they start getting those characters going, I think they're going to start swapping in Kang and Titania, and you're going to start to see those two characters working with those teams. Ultron in general on Masters of Evil, I don't see a lot of players using now anyways. Not that he's a terrible character, he's just not really, there's just no real place for Homeboy to sit down and do anything right now. So a lot of players are just primarily using this 4-piece here with like an APOC, or with maybe Dormammu, or with some other character that is not Ultron, typically what we see. Sticky or Absorbent Man, he just takes on a lot of damage. Really, it's Titania and King the Conqueror. Titania, really good option here. Primarily though, this is going to be for Cosmic Crucible. Titania outside of Cosmic Crucible is okay, maybe in Alliance War. Kang is viable everywhere in Arena, in every single format of the game that you can throw him into. He's going to be a viable character there. But all right, next up, let's talk a little bit here about New Warriors. Now, they've definitely made sure that New Warriors are not just viable in Cosmic Crucible, but they're also a viable right now in Alliance War based on the current season. Now, all of these characters in general, in my opinion, I think scale very well in Cosmic Crucible. They've scaled very well over the past couple seasons here. The weakest link, if you ask me, is probably Dagger on this team. If I'm forced to pick though, I would say that the top characters to build on this team would be Deathpool. Like in this order, I would go Deathpool because of the damage, the speed that she gives to the team, the ability energy on enemy death, her ultimate, being able to completely do like an insane amount of damage with a 200% piercing when she has all of those 5 charges, right? You need her on this team. She dies, this team is no longer good. In order, I would probably say Gwenpool is probably the next character. If you're being able to flip positive effects, she gains taunt, so you also want to be able to tank and take on some hits to keep that away from the rest of the team. And I would say Firestar. I mean, the out of turn damage is nice. Her also being able to land this trauma with her ultimate ability that she gets on turn 1, applying bleed. She's repeating this 3 additional times. She gains an extra 25% crit chance on this ability. I think she's kind of like an underrated character in Marvel Strike Force, if you ask me, because I do think that this team largely is, in a lot of ways, I think predicated upon, you know, her to her, like her damage to a certain extent, especially with that trauma. So maybe she's like the second character as you build up high, but I think these three characters definitely do stand out. Not that these two are slouches. I think Cloak does very well on this team as well, but as you can see, like, these are the three characters that I have built the highest right now, and probably the only ones that are going to go to level 100 on my roster. So they definitely provide, I would say, the most value in terms of your gear investment on your team. And then next, let's talk about Secret Defenders really quickly here. I'm going to be quick with this one. These three characters are top tier. They're amazing. They're arena viable characters right now. Black Cat is a legendary. Miss Marvel is just very hard to take down. And Robbie does a crap ton of damage. And, you know, I think he's going to be viable for a decent amount of time here in the game. Also, these two characters in Dark Dimension are insane. So although the team itself is not, they're still standing the test of time. What am I saying? They're standing the test of time right now in arena. They're still used. This three piece right here is used pretty much basically in every game mode. Arena, they're used in Cosmic Crucible, they're used in Alliance War. A lot of players usually throw in Scroll with this team on defense in Alliance War. In Cosmic Crucible, you'll see Photon brought back in with maybe Spider-Man Noir. Sometimes you'll see, you know, Captain America with Black Knight, although a lot of people are using Out of Time right now, the full Out of Time team in Cosmic Crucible with these guys. So these three definitely provide a lot of value. Photon, I still is used a lot in Alliance War with the A-Force team. She has the A-Force tag, so essentially she is the A-Force, she is a part of the A-Force team. So yeah, that's where we go. And I am running out of mouth saliva here, so we're going to talk about this last team, which is the Out of Time team. And so I'm still kind of looking to properly make my assessment on this team right now, but I think if you were to give me an order in terms of which way I would go in terms of first initial investment, it would be Black Knight. Like, for obvious reasons, this dude is a monster right now in the game, especially in arena. Was a pretty much soft to hard counter to Super Scroll. I would say going down the line here, the next character would probably be Cosmic Ghost Rider here. Then maybe I would probably look at Captain Carter. Starbrand just dies. Like, he is a useful kit and you need him there for sure, but he just dies so frequently, and especially in a mirror match, he just gets deleted. My Starbrand gets deleted, their Starbrand gets deleted, all the Starbrands just gets deleted. But I would say Black Knight, Cosmic Ghost Rider, who I don't have as yet, but I've tested on the test server, would be the top two characters to build on this team. Hopefully I'm not forgetting any team here. Hopefully you got some good value out of this video. Let me know if there's any specific questions that you would like to ask. I do want to emphasize this again. On every single team, you are going to need to build all the characters up to a certain level. This list or this video is specifically for who are the main characters on this team that you potentially will want to bring to higher levels than the certain level that you would leave for the other characters. I want to make that very clear, because somebody would say, you got to build all the characters. I already addressed that. Okay, listen, appreciate y'all watching this video. Let me know if you have any questions about anything. And as always, guys, y'all be blessed. I'll be safe.